Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, and a little bit of laughter. Because as you know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. We're here with one of our amazing Fresh Starts experts. Will you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. Hi, my name is Rosemarie Ferrante. I am an attorney. I practice solely collaborative divorce and mediation in the state of Connecticut. I'm also the president of the Connecticut Council for Non-Adversarial Divorce, which is our statewide professional organization for mediators and collaborative divorce professionals, which includes financial, mental health, and legal professionals.
Okay. Collaborative divorce is I think a new thing, but maybe I'm very wrong. But it's definitely a new term that is being floated around many places. What is collaborative divorce? Like, what is this concept?
Yeah. It's actually relatively new in the world of divorce, but it's not as new as you would think. In fact, at this point, I believe 28 states have enacted the Uniform Collaborative Law Act, the most recent being Connecticut, which we just enacted this year, which is super exciting. So collaborative divorce is a very specific process. People who are contemplating divorce, who feel the assistance of a professional in the mental health and the emotional side of divorce, in the financial side of divorce, and certainly in the legal piece of divorce, will be getting support in all of those areas. So a full collaborative team includes each spouse and their collaboratively trained attorney, as well as a mental health neutral and a financial neutral. And so that team guides the family through a smooth transition of divorce, which ultimately gives them all of the support, resources, information, education they need to make all of the decisions that are going to be contained in their agreement. And an important part of it, because like you said, it's floating, the word's floating around, and it's really important to know that everyone on your team needs to be trained in collaborative. There's an actual participation agreement that all of the professionals sign to make it a true collaborative process, which says that any of the professionals are disqualified if either spouse ends up litigating in court. And so it really gives everybody ownership of this process. Really, everybody's all in this process. And there are professionals who say, well, I practice, but I don't sign that agreement. And that's not a true collaborative divorce process.
Can you just walk us through what that actually looks like? Like, I know so much of divorce is like confusing for people because they can't picture it in their head.
Right.
So what does that look like? Are you at a table with them? Do you do this on Zoom? Like, talk us through that.
It's such a good question. And I think that, oftentimes professionals talk about the collaborative divorce roadmap. And it's sort of like, what does that mean? And it's hard to really understand until you're in it. A lot of people afterwards say, oh, now it makes sense. But when you hear the words, how do you kind of really understand what the process looks like? So initially, the spouses are going to, well, first and foremost, have to agree that they want to participate in the collaborative process because it's a voluntary process. And both spouses are going to have collaboratively trained attorneys, again, representing each of them. And in one of the very first meetings with the full team, which includes the neutral financial and the mental health coach, we're going to explore the family's background, the dynamics, and we're going to talk about goals because this is a goals-oriented process and it's not a position-oriented process. So that means, what are each spouse's goals for transitioning through this process? What are their goals perhaps for their children? Things like, We want to maintain consistency for the children, try to keep the least amount of conflict. We want to transition our relationship in a healthy manner from spouses to co-parents. And financially, it may be things like, I want to be okay on the other side of this. I want to find fair, durable agreements. So we explore what their goals are. That sort of sets the stage. We review the participation agreement. Again, that says that any of the parties, the whole process is over if any of the parties litigate and the professionals involved are disqualified from representing them in court.
Right.
And we review, the next steps. So now you've got this whole team. You're not always going to have the whole team in every meeting. Perhaps there are meetings between the financial neutral and the parties to gather the finances, to make sure everyone understands the finances. There may even be some private meetings between the financial neutral and one of the spouses with or without his or her attorney.
Mm,
So it kind of goes off in branches of what those subset meetings look like.
right.
The spouses are also going to meet individually with the mental health neutral if there are challenges with respect to communication, but absolutely if there are co-parenting issues.
Hmm.
And so they're going to talk about the parenting plan and what that looks like, how they're going to share time, how they're going to communicate about their children when they're in
Right.
households. And then full team meetings are really for scenario building. So now we've gathered the financials, we understand the family's goals. Now let's talk about what is the law on alimony, and the attorneys can share that information. And what is the range of outcomes? And what is everyone's ideas of fairness? And we start really throwing out ideas because every scenario should be considered.
Hmm.
Can we keep the house? What would that look like on a budget basis, on an asset basis? What are the retirement assets? How do we divide them? And you just start to put together scenarios. The financial neutral can prepare scenarios on child support and alimony, on different asset divisions,
Right.
until we ultimately come to one that's going to work for everybody. Because, as you know, and most people going through this process or
Mm-hmm.
involved in this process understand, is any financial decision you make on budgets is going to impact assets. These are all interrelated. And so it's a process. There's as many meetings as is needed
Hmm.
to get everybody to a place of comfort with final resolution before then the attorneys start drafting. So the
Hmm.
beauty of the collaborative
Yeah.
is that people are really supported in, again, the three main components of all divorces. No divorce is without emotional issues, financial issues, and legal issues. And so they're all addressed in a really cohesive manner.
That's so cool. And what a great concept for people that really want to have a great co-parenting relationship, or, that are coming at this from a collaborative, amicable way. How do people find out about collaborative divorce, that this is even a thing?
Yeah. Another good question. So, what often happens is people are in the stages of contemplating divorce and they first go to a lawyer's office. And when you first go to a lawyer's office, potentially you're getting a consultation about advice and what the law is and some strategizing things to do. But with a consultation with myself or most of my colleagues who do practice collaborative and perhaps mediation, we do process consultations to explain the process, to kind of assess, is mediation appropriate or would collaborative be more appropriate? What's the similarities and what are the differences? And I actually have, and I could share with you, a self-assessment for people in the early stages to think, what are the reasons why mediation may be appropriate, or perhaps collaborative would be a better fit? Because people have three options: litigation, the collaborative divorce process, or mediation. And you really need to understand all of them to make a decision that's best for your family and that's going to be most successful based on your family.
Right, right. What is the difference between mediation and collaborative divorce?
Yeah, it's such a great question because mediation and collaborative are both built on the same tenets of good faith negotiations, full disclosure, um, voluntariness, because again, both spouses need to agree to either process. The difference is really the team, and the team really depends on what support the family needs. And so in many situations, the spouses really are aligned on parenting, are really aligned on finances. Maybe they just need to work with a mediator to put their agreement together to work out some kinks. They can certainly have review counsel to review
Right.
their agreement ultimately, but that might work. But for other couples, maybe they need additional support. Maybe the discussions about the children are really challenging, or maybe they just don't know how to communicate well, and working with a mental health neutral can help them with better communication, which is the foundation of good co-parenting.
Right.
Financial neutral certainly offers an additional area of expertise that might be needed if the financials are more complex, or one spouse doesn't feel the level of savviness that the other spouse has. So it
Mm,
evens the playing field. So there's a lot of different considerations for people to think about when trying to find the process that's going to be most successful and meet their needs best.
what kind of couple would be like an ideal couple for going through this?
I like to think that most couples can have a successful collaborative divorce process because you're getting more than what you'd be getting in litigation. If you're going to court and asking a judge to make decisions, you have two lawyers, but you don't have the financial neutral and the mental health neutral. And usually the reason people litigate is because they don't have that, one spouse perhaps doesn't have the ability to handle the emotional aspect. So it's really the emotion that drives the litigation often, not
Yeah.
always, often. And so you're getting a more curated team, and you can pick that team together. We like that co-parenting counselor. We really, when you meet two lawyers who do a process consultation like I do, you might say, we really like the vibe of those lawyers. I'll work with her and you'll work with him,
Mm,
might be, which is a nice way for spouses to approach this as a team.
yeah.
You're still going to be a team through this process. You should approach it that way, particularly if there are children, because you're
Yeah.
going to be in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You did. Yeah. And I love that. I love the approach here because it really is about just the transitioning into a new phase of that family and the support that the family needs. I think that that's amazing. So, where do you work, Rosemarie? How do you work if people want to get in touch with you?
Thank you. So yeah, I do. I'm admitted in New York and Connecticut, but my practice is solely limited to Connecticut. My website is divorcemediationct.com. There's ways to reach me through that website, but that will be your first point of information in terms of my practice. Um, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook as well, but you can find that on my website.
Awesome. And you can always reach out to us and we will connect you to Rosemarie also at Fresh Starts. If somebody's going through a divorce or considering a divorce, Rosemarie, what would be some words of encouragement you could leave them with today?
Yeah, sure. So, divorce isn't just a point on a timeline. It's a transition in your life. And so really finding the support that you need is important, and really understanding what that support is, emotional, financial, and legal, can help you not just get to the finish line of divorce, but create a life post-divorce through your agreement that helps you and your family move forward with clarity and confidence.
I love that. Well, we appreciate your wisdom and thank you for being here and clarifying all of that because it's very important to know that it exists and there's people there to support you and it doesn't have to be, an angry litigation courtroom scenario. It can be a kind of a lovely scenario to rearrange your family. Thank you, Rosemarie. If anybody wants to get in touch with her, definitely reach out. If you have questions or you're in Connecticut, we appreciate you and we're so glad you're part of our community. Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com. for more info.